One of the great things about being a reader is that when you're on this literary journey, you are not the same person at the end that you were in the beginning. Every story is an opportunity for personal growth. And I want to grow wiser this week. That's the type of reading week I want, because last week's reading week was lame. I read a book that was not at all intellectually stimulating. So on the agenda, I have two short masterpieces that I've had on the TBR for several years. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and C.S. Lewis's The Screwtape Letters. Brave New World is a dystopian novel about a futuristic society where humans have solved many of humanity's problems. But because we are imperfect and we make a lot of mistakes, humans are unable to create a perfect future without doing some terrible, horrifying, scary things. And I look forward to diving into this one. It's considered to be a true masterpiece, often compared to 1984, another political, philosophical, futuristic dystopian story that I have not read. The Screwtape Letters is an epistolatory novel that is a collection of letters between two devils, Wormwood and Screwtape, and they talk a lot about how to best tempt and corrupt humans, to turn them away from the path of good, and to cause their souls to be led into damnation. I think both of these books will have a lot of different ideas that kind of work together and create a very interesting intellectual cocktail for this week. But they're both quite short. And one of my goals for 2025 is to read at least two short stories a week. So I'll also be reading a few short stories from Night Shift by Stephen King because I love Stephen King and this is his first short story collection and I've been trying to read it for over a year. I'm excited to see all the thoughts I have during this week of reading. Welcome to the reading vlog. Thursday. So what am I learning from the Screwtape Letters? There's an interesting chapter, I think it's like 5 or 6, where the senior devil is telling the younger devil, one of the main ways to make sure that humans do evil is to make sure that one, they are focused on the everyday tasks they need to survive, and two, that they are focused on partaking in selfish action, only looking after themselves because nobody else will. And why is that very intriguing to me? Because no matter your political persuasion, you believe that there is some entity out there that is trying to make you unhappy, trying to limit your freedom, trying to negatively affect you in some way, and that it's better just to look after yourself because the world is conspiring against you. It is better to be selfish and just focus on survival because that's the best that most of us can do. And I think that message in the Screwtape Letters will still resonate very strongly in today's age. I'm not going to talk too much about religion because this is a religious work, but you can apply a lot of the lessons to just people that want to control you, want to negatively affect you, want to take you away from the path that you should be on in general, because a lot of these lessons relate to that. What is Brave New World teaching me that relates to that is one, I think, key difference between a utopia and a dystopia is in a dystopia, you have no control over what you are going to do. Your path in life will be chosen. You'll be raised up from when you are young to do one specific task, and you'll be, forced to do it. You'll be expected to do it. And you'll be taught that this is ideal because you are best suited for that task. But you can never stray from that mission that's been assigned to you. And I feel like oftentimes our overlords, no matter where you are in the world, no matter, who your, specific boogeyman is, they want you to be isolated. They want you to be focused on survival. And they want you to always believe that you can never change. I'm very happy with the way both these works are making this philosophical, intellectual cocktail in my brain because they build off of each other very well. I'm only 40 pages into Brave New World. There's a lot of disturbing things happening already. This utopia is giving off very strong dystopian vibes. But the thing I find the most disturbing, the thing that is getting the most visceral reaction from me is the fact that, most children are born outside the womb in factories, they split, fertilize eggs into, hundreds and sometimes thousands of twins. So a bunch of people are genetically the same, and then they train these people to go into the same jobs. But before a, a large proportion of these children before they are born are deprived oxygen. They only get 70% the oxygen of the other fertilized eggs, so that they become unintelligent. They have a lower ceiling. They can't accomplish as much. They're essentially creating an underclass of individuals. And that is terrifying and very relatable. So I don't talk too much about my background, but my mom was very young when she had me. And the week I was born, she adopted my 5-year-old older sister. So it seems like I was destined to fail from the start. There was a lot of struggles. I learned to read late. I didn't do very well in school until I was in college. I would have been a child you would have written off. I had like problem of enunciating my words, speech impediment issues, and when I was younger, the gap between me and my peers wasn't so obvious, but as I got to like 4th grade to right until high school, I really felt like I lagged behind, and that was exacerbated by me going to a private school from 5th to 8th grade, where I was even farther behind. But I do truly think that it's kind of something you can't debate, is that whoever's in control of the various governments around the world, they do pick children who are going to be winners, and they do pick children that are going to be losers, because they want to have an underclass of individuals. Because the system needs to have an underclass of individuals. Everybody can't be successful. Everybody can't be, comfortable. Everyone can't have all these blessings and benefits and privileges. And that's depressing. So that's why you see a lot of these utopian ideals, grow in popularity, because people think everybody deserves equal chances. Obviously, that's not possible. Political science major. I have a great love of economics. Not possible. But it's something that we all are trying to strive for in our own way. We want our friends and family and the people we care about to have a better life. But we don't know how to do it. And I really want this system in Brave New World to come crashing down. Because there's like a little blurb at the beginning of Brave New World where it's like, yo, every utopias are bad in principle. If we ever get to a stage in humanity where we have reached the utopia, the next stage will be to tear down that utopia. And it's like both utopias and dystopias destroy the human spirit, destroy what it means to be human, takes away all the meaning out of life. And yeah, big brain ideas. I'm thankful for good books. Reading really has shaped me as a person. I wasn't a reader until I was an adult. And then I really feel like I've grown tenfold since I was like 21. I've read hundreds of books the past several years, and every one has had an influence on me, and sometimes a very profound influence on me. And I'm thankful for these 2 books because they are quite thought-provoking. I swear, I am highlighting a passage almost every page of the Screwtape Letters. I love it. Brave New World is quite dismal, quite stark, quite depressing, incredibly moving, and thought-provoking. Today, in both of these works, it talked about the importance of reading and why, in this book's case, the devil and the evil forces and the government, they both mention how one of the best ways to negatively influence a person and to weaken their resolve and to make them easily manipulated is, number 1, make sure they don't read. And number 2, if they do read, make sure they're not reading anything that's different from the people around them. So if they are reading, they're not reading anything unique. They're not reading anything that they truly want to read. They're reading it because everyone around them is reading it. And that is that is so relevant today. So many people on Book Talk and on BookTube are just reading books because it's popular. And you get that dopamine hit when you read a book and people are like, oh, I love that book too. And you don't have a lot of dialogue about it. And when you're all reading the same stories, you're going to have a similar experience. Obviously the reading experience is going to be different depending on who you are as an individual, but the story is the same. But when you read different stories that nobody else is reading, no one else is being exposed to, you're going to be experiencing and relating to ideas that other people aren't going to be aware of. And in Brave New World, this dystopian future, that would be very important. You don't want people to be thinking as individuals. You want people to be thinking in line with everybody else. And if you want to destroy someone's moral resolve, make sure that they never see themselves as an individual, because individuals can't be held accountable for their actions. So oftentimes we hide in the crowd and we try not to stick out. And that's a dangerous thing. So yes, even if you're not reading nonfiction, reading fiction is very important. And I dare say in the modern age, reading fiction is sometimes more important than reading nonfiction. I can't tell you how many times I've told people how much I read, and they're like, well, that's all fantasy, that's all fiction, that's useless information, that's just escapism. How many nonfiction books have you read? I usually have read a lot more than they have, but that's beside the point. I feel like reading is stigmatized unless the knowledge you get from that book can be used to make money, can be used to, further a profession, to learn a skill. And that's just another way to make you more useful, I believe. Nonfiction makes you more useful, but I think fiction makes life more colorful. And I think there's nothing wrong with reading if it makes you a happier person, it makes you a more well-balanced person, it makes you a person with more varied experiences. Because the person that doesn't read only lives one life, but the person that who reads many books lives many lives. And that's my TED Talk. Tuesday, the last day of the reading vlog, I finished Brave New World. I didn't post what I said yesterday about this because I use a lot of terms that may be too troubling to use on YouTube. I didn't want to be flagged for it. Safe to say, very sketchy things are up with the society of Brave New World, particularly with the sexualization of children. A lot of sex in this book. Everything kind of reduces back down to sex in this book. Sex and pleasure and hedonism. And at the core of this book is basically, would you rather have a life of meaning and difficulties or a life of no meaning and pleasure? A lot of people would choose either of those decisions. Like, I want a life that means something. I want a life that feels good. And that's what this book is all about. Is a society where there is no meaning something we should be striving towards? Because a life that has no troubles, all pleasure, there's not gonna be much of substance. But it all depends on whether or not you think life is about having a good time or doing good things or doing meaningful things. And those are it's a really interesting debate. And I'm not exactly I'm definitely very much on the life is about finding meaning part of that spectrum, but I understand completely why some people would choose pleasure. There are a lot of things wrong with our reality, with our civilization, and it seems unfair. So, would a society that was just everyone had a good time, everyone was doing things that brought them joy, everyone had a bunch of escapism, would I blame people for wanting that? No. And yeah, this book really made me think a lot. The ending was not anticipating the ending. The ending 2 pages really had a little bit of everything wrong. So yes, interesting book. This was a very thought-provoking week. Perhaps the most thought-provoking week I've had since I started doing reading vlogs. That's not a lot of reading, but it was a lot of mental bandwidth that was used to completely understand what was happening. I didn't even get to read any short stories. I'm going to have to catch up on that because the goal is to read at least 2 short stories for every week of 2025, which will end up being 104 short stories. But yes, Screwtape Letters, amazing. Brave New World, amazing, but the ending did fall off a little bit. The author made a stylistic choice around the halfway point. He added a character to the narrative, and I really liked it, but also I feel like it kind of destroyed the momentum and made the book a different type of story that I was anticipating from reading the first few chapters. So yes, there's a reason these books are classics. And I look forward to seeing what I'm going to read next week. Next week's probably going to be a shortened reading vlog because starting a reading vlog on Wednesday and ending it on Tuesday is really lame. And that's not just, I think it's awkward. I think it's awkward to have reading vlogs being finished in the middle of the week. But it's because 2025 started on a Wednesday and I wanted to get the first 7 days. My bad. I think next week's going to be a shortened reading vlog, and we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. Now I just got to figure out a good thing to read for next week. Thank you guys for watching this week's reading vlog, where I read and I think about things. I look forward to seeing what the stories have in store for me, and I'll talk to you guys next time.